Hi, and welcome to Coach Talk. We're here today discussing different topics and issues regarding our recent sort of situation that we're all facing right now. I hope to bring more learning and knowledge from a variety of people, especially those that can give you information which is more useful and not all of the above that's happening on Facebook or anywhere else, which is not really realistic or maybe even sort of logical with regards to what's going on around us. So I have with me today, thank you so much for joining me, Dr. Shabbir Tejani. It's been an absolute pleasure. I have tried so hard to get you on any of my shows, and I finally managed to get you on. Thank you so much for being here.
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much for your kind invitation. And I sincerely apologize for not being able to make a lot of the invitations you sent me, but I'm here now.
No, it's fine. I totally understand. You were actually willing to come to the studio in London. I know you live up north as well, and it just so happened that all of this happened. But actually, having this is probably a better platform because it's for everybody, and it's not just, to a sort of a niche audience. So tell me a little bit about yourself, because I know obviously everyone knows you for you reciting and having, cultural music and, sort of like religious sort of terms, but you are a GP, right? At this very moment, you are working, as a frontline worker. So tell me more about the whole idea of this COVID-19, for example, the basic terms of it. Like, where did that name even come from?
Yeah, so first and foremost, yes, I am a GP. I'm based in Leicester, currently a GP partner. So if we start off with the basics, what is COVID-19 and why do some people use the term coronavirus and why do some people use the word COVID-19? So COVID-19 is actually a strain of the coronavirus. So if you imagine that there's different types of viruses, one of the virus types is called a coronavirus. I don't know if you remember the SARS virus back, a few years ago, and then we had the MERS virus, we've had Ebola virus. So all of these come at specific names for a virus, but the actual family of virus is the coronavirus. And then when we looked at the coronavirus, or rather not we, but whoever was researching it looked into it, they found this special new strain that's never been seen before in human beings, and they named it COVID-19. Now, COVID-19, I don't know why they've called it that. It could be for so many different reasons, but
it was 2019 that it was actually kind of like spoken about. That's what I've researched. Like I said, you don't know where this information is coming from. If it's real or not.
You're obviously more up to date on it than I am.
I do my research.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but that it's just I don't know why they chose the name COVID, but it is a family, or rather a strain of the coronavirus family.
Okay. And we were talking about earlier that it affects different people in different ways. And there is still research, obviously, and, only in time in the future, we can look back and have more analysis. But right now, because obviously you're facing patients all the time, and, I'm sure amongst your colleagues and peers, you are discussing this. And what has come up in your sort of like evaluation and analysis so far? Because I know there is obviously a lot of talk about it affecting people with weaker immune system and the elderly, but then we are seeing more and more of younger people, but I'm not sure if that's actually where they are actually losing their lives. In that sense, they might be contracting it, but to what extent and to how serious is it for different people?
All right, so if we start off with the very basics, so coronavirus is a very contagious virus that spreads from person to person very fast. And the speed at which it travels is very, very fast, a lot faster than a common cold, for example. And the way it gets into your system is through the oropharynx, so you can either breathe it in, or if you sort of like put something in your mouth which is infected or has the virus on it, you can get in that way, or any other sort of openings in the body, so the eyes, the ears, anything like that. So the reason why certain people are more susceptible, so number one, we found that children actually are less susceptible to it. So children become less sick with a coronavirus infection. And the people that we're more worried about, because in younger people that tend to have a better capacity in the immune system to fight the infection, generally they'll do quite well. So they may have a fever, they may have a dry cough, they may even have loss of smell or taste to begin with, but they recover quite quickly. But we've found that 20% of the people that contract the virus actually go on to need hospitalization. So they're generally, and I say generally, but not always, people that have a slightly weaker immune system. So they may have an underlying medical condition like asthma. They may be on certain medication, like, for example, drugs for rheumatoid arthritis that can make your immune system weaker. Or they may be frail and elderly and therefore have a slightly weaker immune system for that reason. And we found those are the people that are generally needing hospitalization rather than younger people who have fewer medical problems themselves.
I'm sure in future you'll always also probably analyze that it could be to do with maybe the blood type, the gene, social habits, because some of this has been raised as well with certain people with their lifestyle. And also, I don't know if this is true, because obviously there's so much information out there. That's why I'm bringing people like yourself to maybe clarify. You may or may not even have the information yet, but things are going around to say it affects male more than female. Is that correct as well?
Yeah, so in China, it was found that it affected males more than females, but we don't know the exact reason why. It may be that there's something about the virus itself that is, in men, it affects them more than in women. But one of the other things is you have to look at the demographics of the population, of the
Yeah.
culture there.
Mm-hmm.
In China, it is unheard of for women to smoke, whereas most men, I'd say 70 to 80% of men in China do smoke. So whether there was an underlying lung problem or lung pathology that they had, which made them more susceptible to becoming unwell with the coronavirus or the COVID-19, as opposed to it being, the word discrimination is not quite correct, but it discriminating between men and women in terms of the virus itself.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Because I mean, even when we do hear of all of these things, we do need to consider other things, like you mentioned. There are so many things, and only I think in time, when looking back, we can really get sort of more sort of concrete, information with research, looking forward. But obviously, we have so much information, and I'm just wondering, like, the main thing that comes to me, because I really wanted to bring you on the show before all of this, was just the general health and hygiene. And in some cultures and communities, it's quite normal to be washing your hands and keeping clean, and things like that. So but even generally, I just feel, I'm not OCD, but most people might think I am, because I'm quite particular and I have a high level and standard of keeping myself clean, and brought up in that way and being in a family that way. And it's got nothing to do even with faith, even though that's part of it, because I know people in certain faith, if they even have it, they still don't conform. Personally, I know that, like, for example, taking a shower at least once a day, always washing your hands, keeping clean from the inside is the most important. Even if you were to put deodorant and perfume or anything like that, it's not going to necessarily work as well if your body's not clean from the inside. So what are your thoughts on general hygiene, with people as well? Because I feel like a lot of people don't take baths every day or showers, and it only takes 5 minutes. And I know that every night we do sweat quite a bit, and sometimes it's as much as this per night, So, like, seriously, do we need to not reconsider our general sort of like well-being in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest with you, I think if we start with basic things like washing our hands to begin with, as we know that the virus exists for, 6 hours on some surfaces, up to 3 days on other surfaces. So, if you pick it up on your hands, it's very easy to transmit it to other people, or even transmit it to yourself. If you touch your eyes, or eat food without washing your hands, you can get infected. But aside from the virus, I mean, generally speaking, hygiene is very, very important. Washing your body, again, getting rid of excess sweat, bacteria, other things on the surface of your body. Washing your hands regularly is very, very important, especially because I don't know if you've ever seen those videos where you see people touching things and how the infection or the bacteria spreads from
Of
place
course.
to place. So it's really important that you keep yourself clean. Apart from hygiene of the body, actually eating the right foods, taking the right things into your body is extremely important, because all of these little things actually add up together to give you a stronger immune system, allow you to fight infections better, give you a general sense of well-being, and improve your energy levels as well.
Yeah, no, I did have an episode with a nutritionist earlier today, so we did discuss that in detail. And also, a lot of it is to do not necessarily with having diet or anything, but it's more about having also, as much as having choice of good food, but it's the mental health as well. Knowing that it's okay to give yourself time to sort of process what's happening right now, because it is really stressful. And considering you work in the front line and you do shows and you do other things, you're looking pretty well, I have to say, on surface. I don't know what your mindset is right now. I haven't actually got into that yet. But I mean, how are you coping right now yourself? I mean, it is quite traumatic, and the pressure, I mean, I'm sure it's pressure generally anyways, but like, what is your experience?
So first and foremost, if we look at just the current situation, the current climate we're in of lockdown, where
Hmm.
most people don't get outside their own four walls, that can be quite a mentally challenging situation to be in. A lot of the people that I see on a day-to-day basis at work are not only patients who've got coughs and fevers and all this other stuff, but also patients whose mental health is deteriorating simply because as human beings, we are designed to interact with other people. We're designed to socialize, and we're deprived of that basic sort of instinct that we have with this lockdown scenario. So it's really important to try and get back to basics, reflect upon yourself, reflect inwardly, and do things like exercise if you can. People are allowed to leave the house to exercise as long as there's good distance between yourself and other people. You should be meditating at home if you can. Try to just reflect on different things in life. I mean, personally speaking, I have my own ways of managing stress at work. I have my own ways of, making sure that I'm healthy from a mental health point of view as well, and different ways that I look at things in order to try and maintain a good level of psychological well-being as well.
That's very, very useful. And it's it's really important to hear that you are taking care of yourself, because that's what we need to hear, especially people like yourself, to keep maintaining that mental spirits that everybody else can also gain from it. I did hear briefly that you did have an initiative of your own starting up in Leicester. You were on the news about it. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so yes, I was on ITV News regarding a clinic that we have in our surgery. Basically, what we've done is we've bought a porta cabin, which is like a, I don't know how you describe it. It's like an external room that's built out of plasterboard and things like that outside the surgery. And we're using that to see our patients who may have symptoms of COVID-19, simply because we don't want those patients to come into the surgery, potentially infect other people that are coming to the surgery, other patients, and also trying to protect our staff members from potentially contracting the virus. So we see them in an outside porta cabin. We have our masks, we have our PPE, which is our protective equipment, in order to make sure that we don't get infected as well. And then they come in through an external entrance to the surgery, as in they don't even come into the surgery, they come around the side of it, go into the porta cabin, and we see them there, and then they leave from there directly if they're well. Obviously, if they're unwell, then we'd normally get them to hospital.
That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. I applaud you. And I also want to thank you personally, and I'm sure everybody else does as well, for everything that you're doing. And this is an amazing idea, because a lot of the patients are not actually allowed to come into the surgery, just knowing that they might have a potential symptom and things like that. So you've actually eliminated that to a certain extent. Do you think that that initiative is being taken on board to other surgeries, or is that the only one that's existing right now, as far as you know?
So as far as I know, we're the only surgery that has this porta cabin idea, but I do know that there are a lot of new initiatives coming up for things called hot clinics, which is basically a separate surgery or separate organization where you send patients who you think have got symptoms of COVID-19. So they never directly come into your surgery, but they go to a separate surgery, one or two designated surgeries in the city.
The thing is, when you have a flu or a cold, you wouldn't normally go to your GP. You would have certain medication to eliminate those symptoms and take away. Now, um, there was some sort of advice with regards to what you can and cannot take. Even certain normal medication was advised not to take. Could you sort of clarify that?
Yeah, so that's actually a very interesting point that you make.
Mhm.
There are certain studies that have come out that suggest that a type of medication called non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, i.e., your ibuprofens, naproxens, diclofenacs, drugs like that, that you would normally take if you get a cough or a cold, um, they've been shown to actually have worse outcomes with COVID-19. So if you do get the symptoms, my suggestion would be stay indoors as the government protocol is. um, Obviously, your family have to self-isolate as well. Lots of fluid. Paracetamol is perfectly fine. Try and avoid ibuprofen if you can. And really, there is no reason for you to need to seek help from a medical professional unless you're unwell with the symptoms. So a lot of people think if they've got a fever or a cough, they need to call their doctor up, and they don't. They just need to self-isolate, just take good care of themselves, rest up, fluids, like I've said, do the basic things right. And then after 7 days, if you're so the rule currently is that if you've got the infection, rather if you've got symptoms of the infection, you self-isolate for 7 days. But if you're at home with someone who's got potentially the infection, you self-isolate for 14 days.
Oh, okay, because they will take more time after you potentially, if that's, yeah.
That's right. So there's a 7 day period where you incubate the virus, and then 7 days after where you demonstrate symptoms. After which it's the theory goes it's out of your system. Whereas those people who are at home with someone who may have got the infection may catch the infection any point in those 14 days. So for them, it's a longer self-isolation period.
Of course. And there was something else that I wanted to ask you. When it comes to when you mentioned, stay at home, don't contact your GP, at what point would somebody feel like, there is some sort of red flag, alarming bells that we can actually know that, okay, now it's time to actually call in? Because some
Yeah.
people do take it a lot more. I mean, I know men generally, the male flu, they take it a lot worse. So, I mean, I know I'm just joking, but still, I mean, people have different feelings about certain things. So it could
Yeah.
be more serious, but then other people be like, well, no, this is fine. And I can continue and I can come out of, this is normal. So we need to have some specifics because obviously if people are quite severe, the sooner the better to be seen is also quite ideal, right?
Absolutely. No, you make a very good point there. Where do your thresholds lie as to when you are deemed unwell? First and foremost, the first thing is if you're feeling unwell, i.e., if you're getting short of breath, if you're unable to complete your sentences. There may be some people who are asthmatics and they might start feeling wheezy, in which case I would definitely recommend seeing your doctor, or if not seeing them, then at least speaking to them on the phone or calling 111. But the main symptoms, as I've said, to look out for are shortness of breath and the inability to complete sentences. So you may not realize that you're gasping for air, but people around you will notice that actually you're not able to talk for as long as you used to be able to talk for. You're unable to complete your sentences fully. So if you do have a cough or a fever, or you may not have either of those, but you're getting short of breath and other people around you notice it, that would be the time where I would seek medical attention.
Um, okay, so you've given us lots of information about the actual, symptoms and the medication and things like that. What other things would you think, like, would come out of this? Because, we are looking ahead as well. And do you think, I'm asking this to most of my guests actually, in your personal opinion, do you think that we're actually going to be, changing our lifestyle and making choices in a different way after this? I'll tell you my answer afterwards.
Okay, fine. So without a shadow of a doubt, we will come out of this very different people to what we came into it. If you look at the very basics, I mean, from a medical point of view, we've noticed on paradoxically to what you might think that actually A&E numbers are down a lot than what they used to be. So the first thing is people are actually not as sick as they think they are, and A&E numbers are down. The other thing that we've learned is actually how to take a step back from the sort of fast and furious lives that we live and reflect a bit more, learn a bit more about ourselves in order to improve as individuals. And I think that's really important that when we come out of this, that we do take time out from our busy lives in order to reflect on how our day has gone, what have we learned today? Because there is a saying, if you've not learned anything in that day, anything new in that day is wasted. So at night before going to bed, have a think about your day. What have I learned that's new today that I didn't know yesterday? And that's how we improve ourselves as individuals. And things like this as well, where we've actually found new ways of communicating with each other, which we never knew or we never utilized before, may change the way we also do business, we do work, we socialize with each other, we do TV shows as well, like we're doing today.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I know there's going to be lots of learning. The only issue that I have is that I'm not, sort of saying that I don't have faith in human, but just looking at history, I mean, we've been through a lot, and unfortunately, even the times of when we think about, when we talk about the stories, hundreds of years ago, when we maybe mention even some of the disciples and things like that, unfortunately, people do tend to forget when we get back into the norm. And it's quite easy while we're still in it. I'm having discussions while we're still in it, and I might call you afterwards as well, just to see the comparison, because when we are automatically back to normal, and yes, we may not think that we are as ill, but we are actually stripped away from a lot, and we're not having those opportunities to go out, to actually indulge, to actually do certain things, which is, the choice is taken away, to be fair. So that has to be considered. But when all of our choices slowly come back again, how are we readily going to still remember these things? And we might reflect back to a certain extent, but studying human behavior, looking at history, there are only a small percentage of people, depending on their stage and phase in life, and depending on their responsibilities, and how they view things. Unfortunately, it's always the minority that will actually take a real lesson and actually make some real transition and transformational sort of changes. That's why my job still continues. But I'm just saying, it is just something that I want to highlight. So hopefully, we can increase the percentage and the numbers who are going to take sort of action. Because I mean, even just, walking around the street now, just going to the shops and coming back and forth, I still see people in their cars smoking and things like that. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't. Everyone has a right to do what they want. But obviously they've even, the government's even kept, off licenses open. So, that's going to create another issue when you're stressed and you're bored. And you probably if you're not smoking, then you're consuming more alcohol, for example, but you're not causing the havoc on the streets because you're not allowed. But it's just really interesting that, I'm sort of making these observations. And I was wondering what your thoughts on it, really. I know you've given your answer already, but I just sort of feel like, with humans, unfortunately, no matter how many lessons we learn going forward, the majority really do go back to normal pretty quickly.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. I think that's the sad thing, that what we may find looking into the future, that we may come out of this not having learned anything, and in which case we are worse for it. You mentioned about the government keeping off licenses open and cigarettes are still available. Look, I do have a cynical side to me, where I do think that there is an element of economics here, and the government trying to, get money from whichever avenue they can. So that's the cynical side of me, and I do see that that could be a huge problem going forward, especially as we discuss the mental health side of things. People who generally tend to be, in terms of mental health, they tend to be more unwell, they will definitely turn to alcohol, and the fact that these off licenses are still open is just creating more problems. But anyway, I'm not going to talk about that too much. But yes, I do see where you're coming from, where people, look, at the end of the day, a lot of people, most of the people, will always look for the easiest way out, whether you like it or not. We want to do the most we can by putting the least energy that we can into it. And that's one thing about human nature that's very difficult to change. And with the lives that we lived before this, it was all about convenience. Yeah. So now, we don't go to restaurants, we don't get takeaways anymore because we're worried we're going to get infected. But if we had the opportunity, we definitely would be getting takeaways. And that's the way I look at it, is that actually people who are who look at life and try to take the easiest way out will probably go back to how they were before. But people who are more reflective and will actually look for the benefits in what we've learned from this experience will hopefully improve as individuals and become better for it going forward.
And you mentioned earlier as well that you had some of your own stress relief strategies and sort of routines. Could you share with me what you're actually doing quite right now? It would be quite interesting to hear what you do.
Yeah, so first and foremost, since I was at medical school, in fact, I went to medical school in Stoke-on-Trent, which is very far from where I lived. So I had to quickly try and understand the world around me and try and rationalize it and try to live in it, essentially. So the one thing that I realized, and my number one kind of um, the thing that I rely on the most is my faith. I'm a Muslim, and I have a faith in God. Um, but one thing I realize is that whatever test you're facing, you are always bigger than that test. You will always come through the other side, and these tests are not designed to hurt you. They're designed to improve you. So these are not really tests; they're blessings in disguise.
Hmm.
And the way I look at it is that actually, no matter what trial I'm in, whatever trouble I'm facing, I will always get out the other side. And looking back in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, I'll be looking at it as an experience from which I've learned something that's made me a better person. And because I'm a better person, that was never a trial to begin with. It was a blessing right from the beginning.
That's a very good way of looking at it. I normally try and give that kind of thoughts to my clients through strategies and tools. Where did you pick that sort of way of thinking, that mindset from?
Well, it's a difficult one to explain. I think it evolved within me as, like I said to you, when I went to medical school, I was in a place where there was not many other people of faith around. You had a lot of trials and tribulations as well as a lot of temptation. So you have to find your own way of dealing with all of that. And this is the way that I dealt with it, is to say, actually, you know what? Um, Life's short, number one, and you don't have a lot of time, and no matter how young you are, you don't have a lot of time in this world. So you have to make the best out of the situation you're in, and you have a choice of either you are happy or you're sad. That's a choice you're making in that situation you're in. If you're facing a trial and you think and you know it's a blessing from the beginning, then there's absolutely no reason for you to be sad at that point, because when you come out of it and you're a better person, it's actually going to improve you as a person. When you get old and wise and all this stuff that people say that, when you're older, you're wiser. The reason why when you're older, you're wiser is because you've been through these experiences, you've faced these trials, or
Mhm.
trials, I say, but blessings. And you've learned so much that you can then impart that knowledge to other people.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. I do a lot of research on, human behavior and obviously the mindset and the way in which humans think. And a lot of these specialists that, talk about these things, they do come back to you being spiritual, you having that higher sort of moral sort of way of thinking because there's something bigger than yourself. And also knowing that life is a test and it's there not to sort of punish you, but it's there to help you grow and develop. And these are the things that, it's not just from faith, but it's from specialists, especially, which are from personal development sort of backgrounds. So it's definitely, psychological and scientific. And a lot of people have had experiences where they have come out the best when they've, experienced adversity and trial and all of these things. And there's so many novelists out there that can even tell you these kind of stories. Even the most successful people have, become that way because they've actually had something really tragic or really bad, detrimental that's actually come out of, happened to them, that they've actually come out the other end. So we got to obviously learn from sort of these things that's happening. It is definitely unbelievable what's happening right now. Sometimes I still can't get my head around it, but we are such amazing beings that we are very adaptable, and we are, most of us are behaving and listening, and we're doing without the majority of it. And it seems like, you are someone that, is kind of like a role model, having those sort of insights and awareness for yourself and picking it up. Maybe later on you can tell me who your real life coach was, but anyway, if it was just, yourself and just, learning and people, your influences around you, obviously. But as we've come to the end of the show, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you've had a long day at work and you've got work again tomorrow, working in the front line, putting yourself out there. Again, I want to thank you very much from myself, and I'm sure everybody that, knows you and watching, for everything that you're doing, and especially the initiative. It's really, really inspiring. But if there was any, last sort of words before we leave this conversation.
Absolutely enough. First and foremost, I just want to thank you for giving me this honor and this opportunity to participate in this show. I hope that I've been able to impart some of my knowledge across to people, and my last thing that I want to just my last message that I want to give out to people is basically what I've said before in this show, is that this is I believe, and again, you may not be spiritual, but from a spiritual point of view, I believe that this is an opportunity, a rare opportunity that we've been given in order to try and take a step back from our busy lives and to reflect. And please make use of this time. You do not waste this time, because it may never come back for you, and come out of this experience better people. One thing, sorry, I just want to clarify.
Tough
I
time.
did
Go
talk
ahead.
about one thing I do want to clarify is I did mention before that, you know, you get the choice of being happy or sad. I don't want the viewers to think that mental health does not exist. It definitely does exist. And depression has a very clear neuro physiological pathway that some people have in their brains that makes gives them causes depression and affects their mental health. So do not for one second think that I do not think that mental health exists. It completely does. But if you do feel that you have depression, you are feeling low, do seek the relevant help. But going back to my last message, that's it. You know, just try and make use of the time you have in this life, however long or however short you have. Make the most of every day, make every moment, make every day count, because you don't know whether this is going to be your last day or not. And you want to leave a legacy. At the end of the day, we all live for one reason, and that's for fulfillment. There's no other reason. You work in the job that you work in for fulfillment. You live the life that you live for fulfillment. You do the things you do for fulfillment, and try to end each day with a level or a sense of fulfillment. And the only way you'll do that is by reflecting inwards and also reflecting outwards on the people around you. So make the most of this time that you have.
Thank you so much. That was some really inspirational, motivational talk right there from Dr. Shabbir Tejani. I want to thank you personally so much for your time and your insights. And I will have you again on another show when I'm on TV. That's for sure. Hopefully, when everything calms down a little bit. But again, thank you so much, and keep going. Well done for everything that you're doing. Keep safe and well for you and your family. Thank you so much again. And thank you, viewers, for your time and for watching. And we will be back with another episode and a different topic. See you soon and stay safe. Thanks. Bye.